Yoga for Arthritis, the Basics series. Day 1, Yoga Props and how to use them correctly. Welcome back to the RA Yogi. I'm Julia, your yoga instructor for arthritis, and today's video is about yoga props and why they're so important for a yoga practice for arthritis. Now we're going to take a look at yoga blocks. I have a lot of students coming to me telling me that they have a lot of pain and sensitivity in the wrists and the hands. So I'm going to demonstrate how you can use the block in a variety of ways. Yoga blocks can be used on low level, medium level, and high level. Starting with the medium level, you can come into tabletop. Just place your hands directly on top of your block. This removes a little bit of the flexion in your wrist and it creates height. Inhale and then exhale. Press equally into your hands and lift the hips up. And as you can see, the weight is really in my feet. Breathe in your downward facing dog. When you're ready to come back down, place the knees gently on your support or your mat and relax. Another way that we'll use yoga blocks today is going to be on the higher height. So coming into a modified lunge or a full lunge, with my knee on my support, I'm going to place my yoga blocks on the highest height. And as you can see, they are on either side of my right foot. Placing the hands gently to the top of the block, giving me more height. I can bend into my front leg, keeping my knee in line with my ankle, and lift my heart and breathe into the pose. Sending the shoulders down the back, keeping a long spine. If not, if I wasn't on the block, I would be down here, and it's really hard to lift the chest if I don't have this elevation. This is also an option if you don't have blocks at home, is coming up to the thigh. And when you're ready to come out of the pose, you can come back down to the floor or your props and gently press your hips back, sending the right foot back and the hands back down to tabletop. Lastly, I'm going to use the block as a support under my back. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to take one block today, and I'm going to keep it in my hand as I come down to the floor, lying on my back, moving really mindfully, using my abdominals to come all the way down. Always allow yourself to check in and notice how you feel during your practice. I'm going to press into my 2 feet and lift my hips up, block at medium height, and place it underneath my sacrum, which is the low back. Now I'm in a bridge pose, but I'm supported. This is typically used in a restorative practice where we hold the poses longer as they go further into the tissues, creating more alignment and releasing the tension of the body, bringing us back into balance. To get out of this pose, you press into the feet and lift the hips and slide the block away, coming back down. Next, we'll be looking at the yoga strap. The yoga strap is for stretching, creating more reach. As you can see, I have my yoga strap completely undone. I'm going to show you how to loop a strap correctly. So I'm going to come closer so you can see. So as you can see, I have the front of my strap and the back. I'm going to take my strap and I'm going to loop my bottom of my strap into the bottom like this and pull it through. Not all the way because I want to create a loop. And then I'm going to take the strap again and loop it back through the top and pull, and this will create a lock. If you want to move it holding the buckle, you could pull the bottom strap, and now I have a loop that's secure. I really like using the loop in my yoga practices especially yoga practices for arthritis, because it gives you so many options to hold the strap. So when you're holding a pose and you're not comfortable, whether you're using your hands, you can change that and loop the strap around your forearms and give your hands a break. I'm going to place my yoga strap on the bottom of my foot and make sure that I am comfortable. My arms are going to loop around my strap as I come down, and I'm going to keep my left leg bent and my right leg is coming up to the ceiling. So as you can see, I have the loop around my foot and I have my forearms locked into my strap and relaxing my hands. I can place palms facing together, or I could just relax the hands, whatever feels good to you. And I can stay here for a few breaths to get a good stretch. And transitioning in and out of poses is just as important. You want to do so mindfully and carefully. If you can lift your left leg to your strap, make sure it's fully in, and then send the right leg down while the left heel is pressing up towards the ceiling without changing the hands. If you prefer holding on to your strap, you can hold on to each side of your strap and relax the shoulders, keeping the elbows slightly bent. And when you're ready to come out of the pose, you can gently bend the knee and release the strap. Moving on to our next prop, we'll be looking at the chair because it is an excellent prop for days where you feel like you can't get down to the floor, it's very painful. You can still do a yoga practice fully seated in a chair. You can also decide to do parts of your practice sitting down for more comfort and parts standing up. I like using a foldable chair because it's lightweight and easy to store, but you can use any chair that's sturdy at home. You can do a full practice seated, as I mentioned, and you're not going to miss out on anything. For example, sun salutations, you can modify them to the chair. I'm currently going through a full sun salutation seated. Downward facing dog. Inhale the arms overhead. And then exhale to float them by your side. Tadasana mountain pose. You can really take the practice to the seat, and of course I'm going to be guiding you through the sun salutation step by step in my next yoga videos. I have one video that is specifically about sun salutations and the variations that you can take. You can also stand up. For example, if you wanted to come into a tree pose, it's a balanced posture, bringing weight into the left foot and the left leg and sending the right foot like a kickstand. You have your hand on the top of your chair and your other hand on your hip. You have the option to take it up to your calf or your inner thigh. I'm going to stay at the calf today because that feels good to me. And of course, take whatever variation feels best for you. I'm using my chair for support and balance, alignment. And it makes me feel like I can relax further into the posture. Of course, you have the option of also letting go, but you know it's there for your support. I highly recommend investing in some yoga props. You'll just be more comfortable. So it doesn't matter where you buy your props, you can buy them online anywhere. I use Be Yoga and Half Moon props. It's the same company, it's a Canadian company. They're eco-friendly and I just love the quality of their products. As their ambassador, I really believe in the products that they provide. The first cushion is a dense, higher meditation cushion. And as you can see, by sitting down on a higher cushion, my hips are elevated and my knees are pointing downward, which is very good for circulation. You can place additional props underneath the knees, like yoga blocks or cushions, even cushions from the couch, some throw pillows, and support those knees so the hips and the knees can open up and relax. The C meditation cushion, so it has sand in it. It's possible that it's not always even, so just make sure it's nice and even before you come down onto your prop. I'm just showing you some different options that you can take. This is for people that might have an easier time sitting up straight. If you have a difficult time sitting up straight, you might want something a little bit higher. You can also add some props under the knees for support, but you won't have to add as much because your knees are lower to the floor. Next, we have a big meditation cushion, and you can add the C cushion on top for more support. I use this cushion frequently for my knees. Because I have joint damage from my rheumatoid arthritis, I need to make sure I protect them as much as possible. I always recommend adding some support underneath the knees. I might be able to sit fully on the meditation cushion on a good day. If my joints are really flared up, maybe I won't be able to get my feet and my knees on the cushion, and I might need to opt for another option, maybe even sitting in the chair for meditation, which is perfect. The yoga wedge. So if you've never used a yoga wedge in your practice, this is what it looks like. So it has a triangle shape, a thicker side and a thinner side. I'll show you some different ways to use this wedge in your practice for sensitive hands and wrists. To take some of the pressure out of the wrist, place your hands. The thick side is facing you and your fingers are pointing downward. Spreading the fingers wide like you would on your yoga mat. You can see that my wrist is straight because of the wedge. Breathe in and breathe out. Sending the shoulders down the back. And there's many options here. Anytime you're coming down to positions where you would have had to place your hands down on the floor, you can actually use a yoga wedge. Another tip for the wedge would be to take your yoga mat and place it on top of the wedge. That way you have more grip and stability on your wedge. I find it more comfortable and more stable. I'm just going to change the direction. Place the thinner side of the wedge towards me and the thicker side towards the back. So my heels are going to come to the wedge. I'm coming back down into tabletop position, sending the hands underneath my shoulders, and I'm going to set one foot at a time onto the wedge as I come up into my downward facing dog. And usually I can't touch my heels to the floor because I have longer legs than my torso, but here I can work on my flexibility. I can bend the knees, and as I exhale, send the heels towards the wedge, giving me more elevation. When you're ready, you can bend the knees and walk the feet forward towards the hands, fold forward, release the head. And when you're ready to come back up, make sure you lengthen the spine and breathe in all the way back up to standing. Next, we'll be looking at yoga bolsters. So there are two types of yoga bolsters. We have a cylinder yoga bolster and a rectangular yoga bolster. Depending on your preference, you can use either or. This is known as a beginner bolster, as the cylinder has more width, and the rectangular bolster is thinner in width, so it would be an intermediate bolster, but I like using both. You can use the cylinder bolster under the knee. Slide the bolster underneath your knees and roll down to your backs in relaxation. Now what this does is it provides support under the knees and releases the lower back. Another reason why I like bolsters is because they're really comforting in a restorative practice. Into forward folds, placing the bolster in front of you And then starting to walk down the bolster in your forward fold. And if this is still too low to the ground, you can add stacked blocks at the top of the bolster, and that way you can come down comfortably to the correct height that works for you. In our forward wide-legged fold, this stretches the back of the legs and the spine, as well as the inner thighs. So I like placing the rectangular bolster underneath my lower back in some poses. For example, lying down on your back, you can press into your feet, and then you can slide the bolster underneath you and find the comfortable position of the lower back. And once you find it, relax the arms by your side. And because it's a flat shape, I just find it more comfortable for the lower back. And if you feel good here, you can always go into a modified shoulder stand, keeping the head in line with the spine. This is a really nice way to come into an inversion. And when you're ready to come down, you can bend one knee at a time, placing both of your feet in line with one another, shoulder width apart. And take a few mindful breaths at the bottom of your pose. You can also use the rectangular bolster along the spine. So for example, supine butterfly, where the feet are together and the knees are apart. We're rolling down our bolster, having a bit of a chest opening as well. My spine is fully supported. Place blocks or cushions underneath the knees for support. If you don't have a bolster at home, you can use blocks, one underneath the base of the head and one under the heart, so right underneath the shoulder blades. And then use cushions underneath the knees, stacking cushions to be able to really be comfortable and open up the hips and the knees completely. What matters is that you are releasing any tension in the body. When you're ready to come out of the pose, we squeeze the inner thighs, and then take our time gently rolling up, using our forearms or our hands until we come up to a seated position. Our next prop, which is the foam knee pad. I bought this because I thought this would be really comfortable under my knees. It's very firm, so for some people you might need something a little bit more cushioned and softer, but for a lot of my clients this works great. So coming into crescent lunge, for example, taking my knee in line with my middle toe, inhaling the arms up, both of my hips are facing forward. And typically we come down from this pose to the mat and sometimes take modified lunge. So you want to slide the foam rectangle behind you. So now I feel a cushion instead of the mat, and it is more comfortable for me. So it depends really on your preference. It definitely gives you some cushioning, and then you can walk up your thigh and come into a hip flexor stretch. Sometimes we send our hand in front of the heart and take a twist. Sometimes during a practice, yoga instructors will make a longer sequence here because it really stretches out the hip flexors, and you want to be comfortable when you're on your knee, so this is a great option for that. The final prop that we'll be looking at today is the blanket. The blanket can be used in a variety of ways. Placing it over the body, if you're at home and you have a cotton blanket at this time of year, that is perfect. It's not necessary to be used at the end of a class, but I find it really enjoyable for the cooler days, the cooler evenings. If you're coming down to your belly and you don't want to create a pillow with your hands like this, you can send a folded blanket underneath the head and release the arms behind you, making sure the height of the blanket allows you to comfortably rest your cheek and your head is in line with the spine. You can also use a folded blanket underneath the knees, underneath the lower back. I hope you enjoyed the first video of the basics series and that you were able to discover what yoga props you needed for your practice. I look forward to seeing you for the second video of our series called Finding a Comfortable Seat. Namaste.